Hello, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to see you all here today on the presentation of a new software extension, EHF-Therapy. This webinar is based on the works of the Vedapal's team specialist, Ph.D. reflexologist and a specialist of traditional Chinese medicine, Sergey Kosintsev. He is also one of the authors of Vedapal's acupuncture extension. So everything that will be presented today, including PowerPoint presentation, some data schemes, etc. It's all was provided by our expert, and I am here today just to voice his ideas and thoughts on the EHF therapy as a method of treatment. And my name is Anastasia, and I am a technical support manager in the Vedapal's team. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them on chat. You may see it on the right side of your screen. And be sure, Sergey Kosintsev will answer them later. So, let's start our webinar. Today, you'll be presented a new software extension which is called EHF-Therapy. By the way, if you have already heard of this method, or maybe you are using this method, please write on chat. For example, you may put plus on chat if you know about this method. If you don't know about this method and hear just for the first time about it, then put minus, please. Okay, Rob, I can see your message about time of webinar. Anyway, be sure it will be available for all users after, so they will be able to watch it on our website. Thank you, František. Hello. So it's a kind of new thing for you, so it will be interesting for you to know about its basics today. Okay, so let's go on. Comparing to others, it's a quite new treatment method, and not everybody knows about its peculiarities and useful qualities. Today we are going to talk about the method itself and about the Vedapal's expert extension, EHF-Therapy. First of all, as we have already mentioned, it's a new method, and for example, our expert, Sergey Kosintsev, he has been practicing it for 10 years, but for treatment methods, it's not a long time. And also, Sergey Kosintsev is using it altogether with traditional Chinese Zhenju methods. Let's start with a definition. EHF means extremely high frequencies, so it's therapy with extremely high frequency waves. You can see EHF therapy includes use of low-intensity electromagnetic fields at particular frequency for medical and health-promoting purposes, and it corresponds to particular wavelengths. Frequency and wavelength are interconnected, and as you can see on your screen now, here is particular correlation. It is at the bottom of your screen. Sometimes you may hear such term as millimeter therapy. It's totally the same as EHF therapy, and it's used. You can use both of them. Nevertheless, the term EHF therapy is used more often now. Sometimes also people use such term as micro-resonance therapy, and it happens due to the fact that the method is based on the resonance principle, and the particle micro, as you probably know, originates from Greek language and means something very small. So it's like a therapy with a very small degree, very small gradation. You will see it from our later slide. Firstly, this EHF range was implemented in Russia, then it used to be USSR, Soviet Union, in a special science town called Fryazino, and in one of these towns' special laboratories. Ahead of this scientific institute was a specialist called Galant, as you may see here, and he worked with his colleagues on the problem of getting EHF waves. You probably know that military question was especially acute that time, and it was a totally closed area to visit. Even now, this city, Frязино, it's a city with restricted access, and in 1960s it used to be just closed zone for any visitors who didn't work there in scientific institutes. Now let's brush up our knowledge of physics. Electromagnetic field influences us depending on its wavelength and frequency. And you may see here on the scheme how the wave is changing and how we call it, depending on its view and its characteristics. So you can see we have radio, microwaves, infrared radiation, some kind of visible radiation, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma rays. It's all about electromagnetic field. Frequency defines how this or that type of waves will be classified. That's why frequency is very important. Talking about EHF, or extremely high frequencies, we should say that they belong to microwaves. EHF is next to the super high frequencies. And today everyone uses microwave ovens, which work is based on the super high frequencies waves, but in early time, in 1960s, it was a kind of sensation in household, you know. But even after getting super high frequencies and after implementing it into household, scientists were still unable to find EHF waves. And military men were really interested in it because there is a lot of energy in super high frequencies for impulses, and military services, they hoped to get even more energy in EHF impulses. So needless to say that we were disappointed because EHF didn't contain the power which military men needed. Anyway, it had been developed already, so a lot of researchers were initiated to find the useful qualities of this phenomenon. A lot of experiments and tests were done, and it turned out that it can be used for space radio communication. Because on the Earth, water molecules devour each other immediately. In the Earth's atmosphere, it cannot go for long distances because of water dissolved all around. But at the same time, EHF can exist in the space area and can spread there. So, then it was when scientists were developing this phenomenon in their scientific laboratories in 60s in Frязино, they noticed one interesting fact, that practically no catarrhal disease were registered among employees of that lab. Comparing to other laboratories where employees, on the contrary, had disorders connected to the overdose of a factor that they worked with, not only catarrhal diseases, but even some kind of special professional disorders. But in this laboratory there was no health problems, and it stimulated medical and biology researches in the extremely high frequencies field. So, what happens when EHF contacts a live cell? Energy of the EHF signal is not very big, it's small. And as you can see it from the slide, it's even much less than thermal motion energy, electronic transition, vibration energy of molecules, and energies of hydrogen bonds in millimeter range. So, it cannot influence even the weakest chemical bond. And previously, it was believed that radiance which cannot break biochemical connections, biochemical bonds, cannot have any influence. Nowadays, we know that it can influence and influences in a positive way in health promoting purposes. We'll explain it later. Anyway, even now, contact methods are supposed to be better if using some EHF devices, for example. We should say that EHF signal is absorbed fully at 1 millimeter distance, and it's exactly that distance where our microcirculation is located, and microcirculation reacts on this radiance, and also immunocells, they react, and we get an immunomodulatory effect. By the way, Sergey Kosintsev has some friends in the scientific community who are working with EHF radiance also, and some of them have such an interesting hobby as gardening. And these guys, they use EHF devices to promote their plant's growth. So they use it for seeds before planting. This manipulation to seeds after exposure to seeds, where plants they grow faster and better, and also they get better harvest in the end as well. Talking about effect for living organisms, we should mention also acousto-electric oscillation. It means that all alive organisms, they have their own frequencies, and it's not stable. And signal starts vibrating inside the cell as acousto-electric oscillation. And it's a kind of deep physics, but I've got a good news for you. It's not really necessary to know it to get the positive effect of EHF therapy and to use EHF therapy, because it's quite simple to use. Analyzing history of this phenomenon, we should mention two main hypotheses. They both appeared in labs that invented the EHF signal. And by the way, this laboratory in Fresno, which invented this signal, it still exists, and it has nowadays the biggest experience in this field. So the first theory, called EHF, belonged to specialists of this laboratory, and it tells us that since every cell of a living organism is autonomous, and a human being consists of a great amount of cells, like 10 to the 16th power, so it's really a huge amount to coordinate. And it's a great work to coordinate. And here we need a really well-coordinated work and some kind of teamwork to get it functioning well. So people working with this hypothesis, they also applied for another science called cybernetics. And this cybernetic science says that nervous system cannot manage all the enormous amount of cells in the human body. It was mostly about laws of management, like about proportion of between managing and executive parts. And this theory called EHF, it was searching for another idea of managing system. So refer to history of the question. We should go back a little bit and should talk about cellular theory of diseases, which was proved by Rudolf Virchow, a German scientist and the founder of cell theory in biology and medicine. So this hypothesis is talk. It confirmed Virchow's theory. And to sum up, we can say that according to its ideas, disease starts not with an organ, but with a cell. And as you see, frequency characteristics of sick and healthy cells in the body, they are different and should be normally all bring to balance. And this theory is talk. It was talking then each healthy cell has a particular oscillation frequency, and it is genetically determined. And any absences were unhealthy, and they lead to disorder. So any failure and any disorder of a genetically determined healthy rhythm, it's a case of disorder, and it can be some inflammation, oncology, degenerative diseases. The more complicated process is in the cell, the more serious disease is. And here was proposed to use resonance principle, EHF, and EHF brings back initial condition to the cells. What's resonance? You know, there are different types of resonance, direct resonance, when two frequencies interact, and back resonance with multiple frequencies. Here we are talking about back resonance. And each cell has own frequency, and EHF wave restores each cell because of its multiple functions. You probably remember, we have already mentioned that the first millimeter of our body devolves EHF signal, and cells in this initial layer, they recover after getting the right signal. And then, if they were unhealthy previously, they recover. And then they send a signal to the next one, to the next ones. So when a quantity of cells grows, for example, billions of cells work at their own frequency, we start feeling bad, and it's a state of rare disease. Sure, to recover, a cell needs time, because a cell tests itself and sends a signal further, and it's not just 1 second deal to do. And if after this testing the cell can catch that there is some kind of failure in vibrations, in frequency, then it starts self-recovery. And EHF therapy initiates it. And a lot of researchers prove that biological active points are the best zones to expose EHF frequencies. Why? Just because they are connected to particular systems of organs, and using our EHF frequencies at biological active points, we get double effect, like EHF and TCM are working together. For example, we know that person has some kind of problems with digestion, then we use digestion points according to the TCM and expose EHF device there, and it will be the most direct way to the problem area. So, that was about the first theory of EHF effect. Let's talk about the second one, which is called electromagnetic homeopathy, and its author is scientist Kalbun. Electromagnetic homeopathy. Any biological system is inseparable from internal and external electromagnetic fields. The first of which construct informational basis of the life, and the second, external one, act as regulators of internal informational flows. So it's kind of similar thing to Chinese biorhythmic theory, which talks us about adjusting to external influences. External fields, they influence our life. And you can see that radiation of different ranges can reach biosphere of the Earth and perform a certain function in our life and influence any living organism on the Earth even now. It's about a particular phenomenon. It is called spectral window. It's not an ozone hole or some kind of that, but it is a reflex phenomenon that allows particular frequencies, you may see them on your screen now, to enter atmosphere. And talking about the source of these external EHF waves, here scientists don't have one common opinion. There is no one answer whether it is about sun or relief of ancient stars or some other space objects. No one answer for now. But nevertheless, this theory supposes that each biological object gets this external radiation, these frequencies. And at the same time, our cells, they emit EHF signal at different frequencies, as we said. Some cells generate even a kind of optic range like laser radiation. And here is Sergey Kosintsev asked me to tell you one interesting thing and to ask you to think it over. So just imagine, if each cell emits EHF signal, then the question is where just one man starts, where one man ends, and where the second man begins. Because signal is a constant electromagnetic wave, and if it goes further out of our skin, it anyway stays constant. A wave just under our skin, where it originated from, and the next out of our skin, it's just the same signal. So why it's not about us when it comes out? Just think it over. Maybe it will be interesting for you to work with this kind of abstract and philosophical phenomenon. And talking about the theory of scientist Kalbun, we should mention importance of electromagnetic range oscillation, because it was about external radiance like from space, as we discussed, and our cell generated, and also we can make some artificial EHF with the devices. So it was all about this electromagnetic range oscillation. And this theory of electromagnetic homeopathy, it was kind of revolutionary even for the 1960s, and pioneer even now. So it's kind of revolutionary theory, and it's a little bit maybe stuck on the border of the official science, because you can understand it easily. If we take this theory on 100%, when we will need to reconsider all huge amount of bases of physics, chemistry, medicine, and so on. So this second theory is kind of less recognized than the first one. And you can see that such informational effect, when synchronizes informational and wave function of cells, got the name of electromagnetic homeopathy, as we said. But anyway, the EHF theory is recognized, and it's absolutely valid and legal for applying. It was approved by the Health Ministry of USSR, and sure, it is approved by Health Ministry of Russian Federation now, and a lot of scientific institutes are working now to develop it. And also we've got official recommendations of Health Ministry about useful frequencies that we should use. So some legal permitted for use frequencies of EHF therapy. You may see it now on your screen. By the way, if you decide to use EHF therapy and you decide to purchase a device, then you should check that this device can work on these legal frequencies, allowed frequencies, permitted for use officially by Health Ministry. So, our expert Sergey Kosintsev likes most of all EHF noise. You can see it here in the end of the list. And according to his experience, it's the most universal one. Talking about a range of terahertz that you may hear probably. We should say that it's a very new thing, and now it's not very well researched yet. So a very rare specialist knows about it, and most of specialists use exactly these frequencies. You can see them in millimeters and in gigahertz on your screen. Again, talking about some registration and clinical testing, you may see that even in early 70s and later in 80s also a lot of researches were done, and sure it was officially approved for health improvement and healing, where we can use this phenomenon of EHF therapy. Now, talking about Russia as a pioneer of this method, where it was invented, and there a lot of research also are done now. You can see a list on your screen of some quite important institutions and scientific centers that are using it now in their official healing programs. Let's talk a little bit about features of the EHF therapy. The first one, selective sensitivity. What does it mean? It means that EHF treats the patient, the particular patient, because it finds the problem cell and the problem area. And by the way, our body always has a failure cell. But some people, they ask our expert, Sergey Kosintsev, where should I put EHF emitter just all day round and all night round, 24 hours? But it's not necessary. It's not a problem that there can be some kind of failure cell, because there is no sense in wearing emitter all the day. Researchers say that 1 hour is the maximum time that you should use such emitter per day. Why? Because 1 hour is the time of change. After 1 hour, there is no changes. But one more interesting thing is here to mention. It's accumulative effect. What does it mean? It means that you can accumulate. You can use this effect if you divide this hour to sessions during one day. For example, if you are using EHF at home for your home purposes, you can divide it for 6 sessions of 10 minutes duration, and then just do it during a day at home, and it will be really good for you to have the effect. Also, choose different biological active points in this case and influence them during a day. One more important thing to mention is that course of EHF therapy increases the body's sensitivity since the fifth session. So you have 5 sessions, and usually it's some essential point there your body's sensitivity increases. It means that drugs influence becomes stronger, and if you take some medicals, you can feel some signs even of medical overdose. For example, a person takes medicines for a long time, and it means that his body has a kind of addiction to it, and its liver, it starts to work with a better metabolism, and the effect of this medicine can reduce. But EHF makes this effect stronger because microcirculation improves, as we know, and the particular medicine is being brought to the zones where it used not to be brought. So in this case, if you feel that your medicine's effect increases, then you should adjust the dose with your practitioner. It's a possible thing with using EHF therapy. EHF therapy can be combined with different physical procedures, but you should use a break around 1 hour or hour and a half between different procedures. And if you are doing, for example, EHF session just after the procedure, it's also possible. Then it should be the last for that day. So stop here. If you did some procedure, then you did EHF session, that's enough for one day. You shouldn't do any other procedures then. And sometimes, talking about intolerance, sometimes Sergey Kosintsev met in literature cases of intolerance, but during his 10 years practice, he saw no side effects of EHF therapy. And he supposes that these links to the cases of intolerance, they are very similar to exactly these acute conditions due to the strong effect that we just discussed. Like person feels not very well due to better microcirculation and stronger medical effects, and as a result, it can be a sign of light feeling that's not common for his ordinary state. But anyway, during his practice, Sergey Kosintsev watched no one person during these 10 years who will not react in a positive way on EHF therapy. No sphere of medicine we can imagine now without EHF. And common general influence can be provided practically in any sphere of medicine. Why gastry comes first? It's just for historical reasons, because it was the first sphere of EHF applying. For example, it was very good because EHF helped to provide a better, softer and more solid scars after some operation, after surgeries. Also, you can see some particular states, particular conditions, then it will be quite good to use EHF therapy. You may read it on the slide. It's not only ulcers and gastritis, but much more. And talking about cardiology, you can see that stable and unstable conditions are here, and hypertension, which is very common in patients. and some other states. You see neurology, different pain syndromes, different problems of the sexual sphere, skin diseases and disorders. It all can be sphere of EHF applied, and now EHF is used for each of these spheres to treat patients with very different symptoms. And by the way, we should mention that now companies that produce devices, they usually produce particular different emitters for different zones. So you can see that a range of possible spheres of application is quite big, and there are different emitters for different zones. So you can use it for different nosologies. That's interesting that it can be used even by dentists, and also it can be used for such severe diseases as asthma, bronchitis, and it helps patients with such disorders to feel better. And you can see some other states like tonsillitis, which is also quite common, and some proctological problems also can be influenced with special emitters. Talking about surgery, we should mention that it really helps to avoid some massive scarring, and it helps to faster and better rehabilitation after surgery. Such disorders and diseases as arthritis are also can be involved, and you can see within brackets there is a huge list of different conditions. Then EHF is used now. It's interesting that it's even can be used and is used in pediatric practice, and here is no restrictions. The only contraindication that we should mention and which exists is pregnancy. And why it exists? Just due to the fact that in USSR there are no special researchers in this field particularly, and after its collapse nobody takes care just to do such researches, because there were a lot of different problems in the country. But probably someday we'll get such researchers results, and probably it will help us to eliminate even this last contraindication. But now it's the only contraindication. We must not use EHF therapy in pregnant women. Here you can see main effects of EHF, and you see it's quite positive effects. It's about our immunity and anti-stress effect, and a lot of different effects. It helps to cope with edema, and it has some analgesic action, anti-inflammatory effect, anticoagulant effects, improvement of microcirculation, as you already know. Also mood stabilization, anxiety and depression reduction. So, sounds good. This slide is about some latest researches and about the effect of the EHF therapy on the immune system. And now most researches that are done, they are exactly about this influence on immunity. You can see that EHF activates T cells and also has some stimulation enhancing of IL-2 production and its reception by sensitive special cells. So it's things that will be clear for specialists who are interested in our immunity system's functioning, and probably if it's interesting for you, you may read more about it, and you should know in which sphere just to develop your knowledge in this sphere. So, like read about these special cells, about cytokines, about their effect on immune system. It will be exactly connected to the EHF effect. But talking in another way, not so scientific, but really understandable for your patients and just for all people around, we should mention positive effects of EHF for our immune system. And you can see here on the slide, it's very good in precision prevention of influenza, of viral infections that has seasonal features. And making such prevention, we can reduce negative effects twice and more. So if it is spring or autumn, just before equinoctial point, then using EHF therapy, you've got a good chance not to be taken ill or just to go through the disease if you just got it with minimal consequences. And so if everybody just starts coughing, sneezing around you, influence biological active points of common action with EHF frequencies, and it will allow not to take ill, or just your disease will go much smoother with it. Also, you can see that some people, they cannot just bear vaccination. They got bad reaction on vaccination. Then it's possible to use altogether with EHF. And you can see another case here, which is about sessions for special military forces that took part in trouble sports, and it's also quite good in their rehabilitation. Yes, you can see all effects are enumerated in this slide. Anti-stress effect, as we mentioned, and also some side radiation effects can be decreased with using EHFs when we are talking about chemotherapy. Again, it's about better healing after surgery. And talking about just ordinary everyday life, we can say that if person is working with paint materials or in under bad conditions in some dusty areas, or for example just working at computer in office every day, as most of us do. So what we usually do? We sit in a bed pose. We are humping up our back, and we always feel a tension at the end of the working day. So to reduce these negative effects, you can also use EHF therapy. Again, some cases when it can be used. And so that's all about the method itself. And now we are going to talk about EHF therapy software extension. So we mentioned that probably EHF therapy is not widely used now because it's a new method and because it has a cumulative effect, and it's not always possible for a practitioner to do several sessions a day with one patient to get this cumulative effect. But we recommend one interesting solution here. Use biological active points just to double this effect. And not everybody knows about these points. But if you do this way, when you've got, like Sergey Kosintsev says, a kind of EHF puncture, a combination of EHF therapy and acupuncture, so stronger and sooner effect. So let's talk about our module. You can see on your screen now a print screen of a new EHF extension. It's the first screen that user can see starting his work with this extension, and he should choose date and time of the first session, the first thing to do. You can see here in the red zone, it's marked with red. Choose the date and the time of the session. Then, after it, we can use nosological filter. It provides some particular nosological forms or just diseases and disorders forms, and it uses individualized prescription for 235 diseases based on Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. Here you can see a print screen of this system nosological filter, a list of possible diseases and disorders combined into groups. So after choosing a particular group and disease, or by the way, there is option normalization of functional state. It's for cases then you don't need to choose particular disease. You just want to have some positive effect, and person has no particular complaints on particular disease. Then you can just choose function normalization of functional state. So after you choose something here in nosological group or in normalization, then you've got an individual reside for 5 days. And after you fulfill these prescriptions for 5 days, you can repeat assessment on Veda Pulse if necessary, if you need additional effort, for example, and then it will be coordinated to your current physiological state, and you will get a new prescription with adjustments to your current physiological state. By the way, is the nosological filter off? If the nosological filter is off, then you can use here atlas of biological active points, and you can click them. You can see it on your screen, and it will bring you to the atlas to see its location, description of the point, and it's done the singular way in our acupuncture module, by the way. Sure, you can edit prescription. You can add something or delete something, and sure, you should do this way only if you are a good specialist and if you are an expert in this field. We don't recommend beginners just to add or delete something, because it's good recepts, and you should know particular purpose why you are going to delete or add something if you are doing this way. One more important thing to say that devices of EHF therapy that using here, that are used here, that should be used here, it's 2-channel devices with 2 channels. And for example, if you already have some device, then you should adjust it to the mode for 5 minutes sessions. So use corresponding mode 5 minutes if you already have device, and treat your patient according to this individual prescription. A positive news for you: if you'd like to purchase this module, you can make it within special offer as a pre-order with a 10% discount. And even more positive news for you: you can order it all together with a EHF device. If you don't have device for EHF therapy, you can purchase them both, and in this case it will cost normally EHF therapy module costs $400 American dollars. With 10% discount it costs $360 American dollars. If you are using this special offer, which is about purchasing EHF therapy module and Veda EHF device for EHF therapy, then instead of $800, it will cost $600. So normally each of them costs $400, but coming in a set altogether, they cost only $600. So, thank you for your attention, and I hope that now after this webinar, EHF therapy phenomenon became just a bit closer to you, and I hope you like it. So, Sergey Kosintsev wishes you every success in learning and practicing TCM and Ayurveda with your Veda pals. And all your questions that we have now, we'll check it in the list. Will be sent to Sergey Kosintsev. But also, if you'd like, you may use this email, education@vedapulse.com, and all your questions also will be answered. So thank you very much, and let's see what do we have on chat. Okay, I can see that here is no questions in the questions block. What do we have on chat? Yes, we did tests with 2 devices. Okay, that's great, František, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. If you don't have any questions now, then let me say goodbye and have a nice day. Bye.